Okay, so welcome again to today's pre-health and CEC networking workshop. Again, my name is Lindsay Laguna, Assistant Director of Career Education Services. Today we will cover networking. So what is networking? It's the process of connecting with people and gathering new information to expand your knowledge about career opportunities, as well as your options for your professional growth. In making connections, you are naturally exchanging insights and mutual contacts. You can think of this as asking for AIR. So that is an acronym for advice, information, and referrals. This is valuable at every stage of your career development. So yep, you could go on to the next slide. All right, so one type of networking is informational interviewing. So what is informational interviewing? It is one of the most important networking strategies. It is a meeting that you set up with an individual to ask questions about their career. During this time, you will ask for what I call, again, AIR, advice, information, and referrals. It is not the time to inquire about a specific internship or job opportunities. Now that might be something that happens within the process, but that's not the explicit goal of an informational interview. So for details on how to request a meeting with an individual, I could put in the chat box some links to our networking tips. And so for guidance on how to structure the informational interview, you're also going to need to identify what types of questions to ask. And so let me actually go through, let me put those resources for you in the chat box. The networking tips is the first document I'm going to put in. So you could be sure to open that link and save it for later because we're going to use it later on in this. We're going to use it later on in this session. And I'm also going to drop the link for an informational interview agenda into the chat box for you all as well. So this agenda will allow you to think about how to just structure what you might want to ask someone. And then it could also help you think about what types of questions you might want to ask an individual if you're to ask them about their career. And also down the road in this session, we will also talk about elevator pitch and how to basically give a 2-minute snapshot of how to introduce yourself to a professional contact in networking. One tip that one of the students in our office gave was that it could be good, especially if you're someone who's newer to networking, to connect with a Simmons alum that you are friends with. So that could be your first intro to it. And then from there, you could, move on to other people as you become more familiar with other people in the network. And that could help you get ready to talk to potential mentors that you do not know yet personally. So basically the bottom line is you can get practice with the people you know first, and then they could also help facilitate connecting you to other people that you're not as familiar with. All right, so next slide. Okay, great. So why do networking and informational interviewing matter in your job search and career development? This will complement the research you are already doing by using job boards, reading employer and graduate professional school websites, and reliable third-party resources to learn about employers and schools. So if you're someone who attended our last session on interviewing, there was a huge emphasis on doing your research before an interview, but then also just know that part of that research isn't just the online research. It's also actually getting to talk to people. I know it's not happening as much in person, but at least in the virtual setting now. And so again, reading online resources is a good start, but you also actually want to talk to actual people so that you can get diverse perspectives and expertise for jobs, academic fields, and careers of interest to you. And these networking skills are relevant regardless of what field you go into. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are a couple bonus tips I have. So something you'll hear a lot is like, okay, network, do informational interviewing. The next couple tips I have for you are things that people don't hear all the time, but are still important nonetheless. So as you grow your network, you ideally will be able to build your personal board of directors. What is this? So as you advance in your career, you will often, hear how important it is to have a mentor, typically defined as someone you can consult regarding questions, concerns, and aspirations concerning your educational and professional development. It is often tempting to search for the ideal mentor. So, I used to think of it as looking for the single individual who embodies, the professional success, career satisfaction, and lifestyle I aspire to have. However, as time goes on, you get to see that you might find that one person, but even if you do, it's still wise to seek career support from a variety of mentors. So when assembling your personal board of directors, it is important to focus on both quality and quantity. You would populate your board with people who can fill diverse roles in your educational and professional development. So here are a few examples of the type of people you might want in your personal board of directors. One is a role model. So maybe it is that person that you want to be someday, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years from now. It's always good to, know someone who's, an industry insider. So whether or not they are actually doing the role that you want, if they're in your industry, there's someone who could also be valuable. So that's the second type of person you might want in your personal board of directors. The third type of person you might want to have on your board is I call that person the industry outsider. And what I mean by that is that this person doesn't work in your field of interest, but because of that, they can help you focus on the bigger picture beyond your desired field. They provide you with diverse perspectives on how your industry intersects with other fields. And they also help you understand how your skills transfer across different industries should you become interested in changing your career path. Fourth, it's good to find someone on your board who could be a connector. Basically that person where, regardless of what industry they're in, they know lots of people, and they also know what it means to make quality connections, build strong relationships with people. Fifth is, it's great to find an idealist. This person is your cheerleader, whether or not they are in your industry. This person provides you with positive support. So for me, I have different family members who might not be in the field I'm in, but they definitely provide that moral support. Six, another type of person you might want on your personal board of directors is a realist. So this person is a challenger. In order to grow professionally, it is essential for you to receive constructive feedback on your career plans. When you present realist mentors with an idea on how to advance your desired industry, they will ask you tough questions and challenge you to refine the details. So 7, finding a coach. So maybe it is someone who's a formal coach like myself, or maybe it's someone who plays this role for you more informally. Basically, this is someone who helps you craft your game plan for critical steps in your professional development. And then 8, last but not least, also think about finding peer mentors. So this could be friends, classmates. This person is your partner in career development, and they're at a similar place to you in their career, and they may have similar professional interests. So together, you two, or more than two, can navigate and exchange various resources, information, and connections in your respective career journeys. So that's something that I want you all to think about as you're thinking about who do I network with. Know that you might have different goals, different purposes, and that's why it's great to have people who can fulfill these different roles on your personal board of directors. My next bonus tip is to have you connect not just with mentors, but also with sponsors. So at this stage in your career, you likely are focusing on finding a mentor and potentially building your personal board of directors, as I just mentioned. This next tip is to focus on sponsors. So sponsors do more than just provide the advice, information, and resources I told you about. They can also act as a career champion for you, and they can play a direct role in your professional advancement. So one way to think about it is that, mentors might talk to you and they might provide you that advice, information, resources, and referrals. But then the part that a sponsor plays that a mentor might not is that they could also be someone who talks about you in good ways to different people in your field of interest. And they could also, and that's where they can play a pivotal role in your advancement. Okay, so next slide. And so hold on 1 minute. Let me just hit pause with recording. Okay, so we're back. So what I want to do is review different resources that could be helpful for you in networking. So the first one is Handshake. Actually, Sarah, can you speak a bit about how Handshake can help someone?
Yeah, definitely. So I personally have an experience using Handshake because I work with it during my work study at the Career Education Center. And using Handshake, you're able to learn about virtual events and you're able to explore jobs, internships, and other opportunities for you to facilitate your networking. To get started on this search, you can actually just explore through Handshake. It's very straightforward, as you can see on Lindsay's screen. Everything is pretty much labeled for you, like jobs, employers, community. Community also ties into your Simmons network. Um, and you can even do a lot of things with Handshake, such as like create appointments within a career coach like Lindsay is. And you can do a lot of things with Handshake to get you started and more connected with the Simmons community.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that, it could also, hold on, it could also be a way to not just learn about, learn about ways about events and appointments. There are actually also, and also think about it as ways to connect with others. So one of the events that's actually coming up in a few days, if it's of interest to some people. So this just has to get loaded on my computer. But for example, one of the many events on Handshake that help you network and learn more about a career of interest is, like, for example, this event that's at that's related to the Mayo Clinic on April 7th, right? And of course, in these days, everything's in a virtual setting. So that's just an example of one of the many events that you can find on Handshake. Was there anything else you wanted to say about Handshake, Sarah?
For me, that's pretty much it for Handshake. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next thing that I want to bring up to people is the Simmons network. So whether you've used it before or not, I just want to show you what this could look like. It's basically like LinkedIn, but it is specific to your Simmons network. So, as you could see here, it'll tell me who's online. There's a feed of different events that are coming up. There's a directory here. So if you're looking to find a mentor or someone else that you could learn from in terms of your educational or professional interests, there are lots of Simmons alums on here who, even look, they have these notes that say willing to help. So that's something else that you can tap into being a Simmons student. The other ones I might go through a little more quickly, but one of our student workers brought up that the undergraduate symposium that will happen later this month, that is another way to network with people with your academic and professional interests. There's LinkedIn, of course. Another resource on campus that I don't know if students think about enough when it comes to professional development is also being able to talk more to your faculty members outside of the classroom, like messaging them outside of class, going to office hours, setting up an informational interview to ask about their own career path, because a good number of them have worked both in academia, but also they may have experience outside of academia as well. Speaking of academic departments, make sure that you're part of the mailing list associated with your major or minor. And if you're not already on this, you can contact your department chair for more information. So for example, the contact for public health would be Val Leiter. For chemistry and physics, it would be Rich Gurney. Other resources that we have are the Simmons Library Career Guides. And these are ways that you can find professional associations and networking resources for your discipline of interest. And then last but not least, there are also, platforms beyond Simmons like Eventbrite and Meetup, where you can find professional and social events online to diversify your network. Okay, so the next activity is more reflection time for you. So, you know, we just gave you all of this information. Now I want you to think about how to begin networking if you're not doing it already. So I want you to identify what you want to learn. Again, what is the advice? What is the information? What are the referrals you would like within your academic or professional field of interest? And who can provide you with that knowledge? Next, I want you to assess who is currently in your network. So this is basically a brainstorming session. Who is in your educational, professional, and social circles that can give you access to your desired knowledge? I want you to identify people with whom you want to connect or perhaps reconnect. Maybe it's a supervisor or teacher or faculty member you haven't talked to in a long time that you might want to, maybe email sometime soon. You can determine how their education experiences and strengths would make them a valuable connection in your network. Create a list to prioritize which individuals you want to contact first. So maybe today you're just brainstorming and then you do the prioritization later. Or if you do have time within this session, you can take some time to start ranking who you might want to reach out to first. And so you would take this time to start at the top of your priority list, and then you can figure out who you might want to write a message to later and set up time to chat with. So I'm going to, so hold on 1 minute. Okay, so now that you've all gotten to share just some of the people that you've had in mind for potentially networking with next, you're also going to want to practice your pitch. So basically, we discussed earlier that, or I shared with you earlier that you might want to think of your elevator pitch or 2-minute infomercial. So I want you to spend a few minutes maybe crafting what that pitch could sound like, and then also you can practice that in pairs. So what I'm going to share with you is, hold on 1 second. I'm going to copy and paste this resource for marketing yourself professionally. It's on the 2-minute infomercial. It gives some guidelines on how to approach that. And for those of you who prefer fill in the blank templates, here is this student elevator speech that some people also find handy when they're trying to think of how do they introduce themselves. So yeah, you could open up those links and, in a nutshell, here are some of the pitch infomercial guidelines you want to think about when you're trying to think of how to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself in a couple minutes to a professional contact. Like, determine who the audience is. So basically, who is that person? Start with identifying, your strengths and back them up with examples of accomplishments. I'm not asking you to list 10, but maybe even just 2 or 3, just to give them a good sense of your background. When you're introducing or reintroducing yourself to someone, identify what your professional goals are, or also, if you're someone who's restarting with a major, what are areas that you're exploring? Practice presenting yourself in an organized, articulate way with others who can give you feedback. Identify who needs to know about you and how to place yourself in positions where you can interact with them. And then last but not least, when it's actually your time to interact with this person, deliver the infomercial with enthusiasm and conviction. All right, so I'm gonna go back to pause recording and we'll go to the last slide since you've all been through your share of activities with me today. Basically, my hope of today's workshop is that you were able to identify the state of your current network and explore opportunities to build it. And then after identifying the current state of your network, that you could start developing strategies to prioritize what types of professional connections you want to make based on your personal intentions and goals. Like even if you're in the same major, interested in the same field as someone else, you might have drastically different goals in terms of your networking, and that's okay. So after this workshop, I do want you to be able, if you weren't already to do that within the breakout sessions of today's workshop, I want you to think about 3 to 5 pieces of advice, information, and/or referrals you want to learn in your job search or perhaps your broader career development. And so for each item on that list, research and identify at least one professional connection that you can reach out to. And then again, using those CEC networking tips that I shared with you earlier, you can find a way to craft a message to reach out to that person and schedule a time to chat. Again, these individuals may be current contacts, such as former supervisors, or they might be new people that you haven't met yet. And maybe it is by reaching into your current network, you can find ways to build bridges to those people. And again, it sounds like the Simmons Network portal was new to some of you. So that's also another great resource if you're interested in reaching out to Simmons alumni. So with that said, I'm gonna stop the recording.